and welcome to virtualsheetmusic.com and livingpianos.com. I'm Robert Estrin with a viewer question. I've gotten this question from so many people, by the way. What can you do with a piano that can't be tuned? Is it something you have to take to the dump? Well, we're going to cover this today, and you'll have some surprising answers. Well, first of all, sometimes indeed it's not worth fixing a piano that can't be tuned, because the proper way to fix a piano that can't be tuned oftentimes involves rebuilding the piano. Because what holds the tuning pins is the pin block. The pin block is multi-laminations of hardwood that is built into the piano beneath the cast iron frame or the plate. So the plate has to be lifted out of the piano with an engine hoist after the strings are removed. A new pin block has to be fashioned custom for that specific piano, which is a very, very skilled job. The piano has to be restrung, new pins, has to go through a whole bunch of tunings. It's a big job when you're doing that. You're probably going to replace the damper felt and other parts. So it can't be taken lightly. Now, suppose you have a vintage Mason & Hamlin, Bechstein, or Steinway, or other fine grand piano. It could certainly be well worthwhile doing all of that. But suppose you have a piano that's just a pretty good piano, and you don't want to spend thousands of dollars to replace it just because the tuning pins are a little loose. Are there other solutions? Well, sometimes you can get some more life out of a piano. Here are some techniques. The simplest solution sometimes can be achieved by tapping in the pins. The tuning pins might not be pushed in all the way. And if there is some room between where the winding of the string is and the plate, by tapping them in, you can get to fresh wood, and you might just have a solid tuning at that point. For a long time, it could solve the problem in some cases. Other times, that's not an option, and what you really need to do is repin and restring the piano. This could be very successful provided the pin block is intact. If your pin block has any cracks in it, using oversized pins will just enlarge the cracks and you're still in bad shape. But sometimes the pins will loosen, you restring the piano, you don't have to pull the plate to do that. If the piano has never been restrung before, you can put just slightly larger tuning pins in. Usually 2/1000ths of an inch larger will usually hold just fine in many pianos. And indeed, you can restring a piano a couple of times before it's necessary to replace the pin block when the pins just become too large to be practical. I've heard of other techniques where you can sometimes treat with a chemical around the tuning pins. Now, this is a technique that, as a last resort, if you have nothing to lose, you figure, you're just going to junk the piano anyway, you could try it. It's not a very hard technique. Sometimes you can get years of service out of the piano, but it's not something that you can necessarily rely upon long term, particularly with changes in weather. Here's a note that you should be well aware of, is that if you take a piano from a humid environment and maybe the pins are moderately tight but are holding okay, and move it to a desert environment, those pins can easily become much looser because a dry environment dries out the wood further. So if you're moving to a drier environment and your tuning pins are not really rock hard, then you might consider choosing another piano or to repinning, restringing the piano, or rebuilding if necessary. I hope this has been helpful for you. If any of you have piano technicians out there have any other techniques you want to share, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining me, Robert Estrin, here at livingpianos.com and virtualsheetmusic.com.